The Magistracy of Canopus. Long renowned for its lucrative entertainment industry and respected medical community, the Magistracy of Canopus has grown into one of the leading economic, political, and military powers of the periphery during the past few decades. Thousands of the familiar Canopian pleasure circuses continue to travel throughout the Ionosphere in the periphery, and tourists still flock to the Magistracy itself each year to sample the indulgences of its famous casinos, brothels, and entertainment complexes. Another long-standing Canopian industry, physicians practicing both traditional and non-traditional medicine, also continues to thrive. But in recent years, these industries have been overshadowed by the Magistracy's growing reputation as one of the preeminent political powers of the periphery, a reputation fueled by economic diversification and the persistent diplomatic efforts of Magistrix Emma Centrella. Origins and History. The Magistracy of Canopus was founded in 2530 when Cassandra Centrella, a former captain in the Free Worlds League forces, led a group of Free World deserters to the Canopus star systems near the Taurian Concordat. Cassandra negotiated secret aid and mutual security arrangements with dissident leaders on the border worlds of the Free Worlds League and the Capellan Confederation, and by 2548 the new Magistracy included 36 independent star systems. Within a few years, the worlds of the Magistracy had become the acknowledged centre of the so-called pleasure industry. Thousands of Ionosphere and periphery residents flocked to their worlds to indulge in gambling, hunting, illicit sex, and other activities that remained unavailable or illegal within their own states. The pleasure industry earned billions for the Magistracy worlds, which made them planets tempting targets for Star League forces when the Reunification War erupted. The Magistracy was drawn into that war when Free World League forces captured the Canopian world of Gudarak in 2577. For several years, the Canopian naval forces resisted incursions by Marik forces, and despite achieving an impressive victory at Hardcore, however, the Canopians were fighting a losing battle. Their defeat at Turok in 2583 cost them much of their aerospace and naval forces and proved to be a turning point in the war. The following spring, Marik troops captured Canopus IV, and by 2588 Star League forces had completely subjugated the remaining worlds. Almost immediately, the Magistracy worlds began to rebuild their economies with the help of generous aid from the Star League. By 2607, the Magistracy had become a territorial member state of the League. For more than 100 years, the Magistracy shared in the general prosperity that descended the Star League and the periphery worlds. This peace and prosperity began to erode in the latter half of the 28th century, however, when the secession of New Vandenberg and 17 other periphery worlds inspired a rebellion against the Star League. The resulting isolation of the periphery grew with the Amaris coup and the ensuing 15-year civil war, which led to the destruction of the Star League's HBG network, the disruption of trade routes, the withdrawal of SLDF forces from the periphery, and the collapse of the League in 2785. In the wake of that catastrophe, the Magistracy worlds adopted a position of armed neutrality. Despite this policy, however, the Magistracy fell prey to ancient inter-periphery disputes that erupted when the unifying influence of the Star League evaporated. Such disputes led to the Taurian Canopian War in 2813. Neither side proved able to achieve a decisive victory, however, and in 2814 the Magistracy and the Taurian Concordat signed a treaty ending that war. For approximately the next 200 years, the Magistracy existed in a relative peace. The succession wars of the Ionosphere prevented Ionosphere tourism from visiting Magistracy worlds, which severely crippled the Canopian economy. The lack of an adequate communications network in the periphery further hindered the Canopian economies, leaving them unable to finance a substantial military force. As a result, the Magistracy relied on diplomatic means to resolve border disputes with the Taurians, the Free Worlds League, and the Capellans. Despite these efforts, the Magistracy began to shrink as it lost more worlds to its powerful neighbours. Rebirth. The seeds of the Magistracy's transformation into a major economic and political power were sown during the waning days of the Fourth Succession War. Emboldened by the weakened state of the Ionosphere militaries, then Magistrix Centrella embarked on a plan of interstellar conquest. First, Magistrix Ciala entered into a pact with Dame Catherine Humphreys, leader of the Free Worlds League province known as the Duchy of Andurian. Then, in September 3030, the Duchy seceded from the League and announced its alliance with the Magistracy. Within a short time, a combined Canopian-Andurian invasion force had attacked the Capellan Confederation. Confident that the Capella military had been severely weakened by its battles with the Federated Sons during the Fourth Succession War, Magistrix Kiala and Humphreys planned to conquer the remaining worlds of the Confederation and form a superstate that would rival the Innisphere powers. The invasion force enjoyed several initial successes against the ragged resistance provided by the war-weary Capellan troops, but eventually the seasoned defenders rallied. The troops of House Daidachi proved particularly effective against the Canopian and Andorian invaders. In a few engagements, their mere presence turned the tide of battle. By 3035, the Capellans had driven the invaders out of Confederation space. Though the Canopian Andorian defeat spelled the end of Magistrix Kiala's territorial ambitions, the ill-fated campaign facilitated the rising political fortunes of the Magistrix's daughter, Emma. The young Met commander personally opposed the invasion, yet served with distinction and gained considerable respect in the Canopian military by disregarding her own safety to rescue endangered comrades on numerous occasions. As the campaign wound down and morale amongst the Canopian troops faltered, Emma began to gain unexpected support for her quiet opposition to the war. Anti-war sentiment in the Magistracy continued to grow when the Canopian-Andorian alliance broke down and the Free Worlds League began to threaten retaliation against the Magistracy for supporting the Duchy's secession. As a result, Emma's political popularity grew as well. However, Emma was unwilling to directly confront her mother after the war's end, and so she returned to Luxon to resume her duties as ruler of the planet. Despite her reluctance to challenge her mother's rule, she eventually became the focal point for groups that opposed Magistrix Kiala and her policies. Meanwhile, Magistrix Kiala immediately ordered the reconstruction of the damaged Canopian military, and luckily for the Magistracy, internal problems within the Free Worlds League prevented the League from taking any aggressive action against them. Sociopolitical Structure. Since its founding, the Magistracy of Canopus has been ruled by a matriarchy, with supreme power vested in the person of the Magistrix. Though the position is theoretically open to anyone winning the support of a two-thirds majority of the Canopian Central Committee, the Magistrix has always been a member of the Centrella family. The centre of the Magistracy government lies on Canopus 4, where the Magistrix maintains her Royal Court, the Canopian Central Committee, and the Royal Courts of Appeal. Unfortunately, the damage done to the planet's delicate ecological balance by years of strip mining has yet to be successfully arrested, let alone repaired, and the world continues to become more inhospitable with every passing decade. The Canopus government eventually may be forced to relocate, a fact that the current administration seems willing to ignore. Magistracy Military. The Magistracy has traditionally fielded one of the smallest armed forces in the periphery, relying heavily on local constabularies and mercenary forces to defend the nation against foreign attack. In the years before the outbreak of the Reunification War, however, the Canopian government began a series of crash rearmament programs to redress this lack of well-trained and disciplined forces. It was too late, however, to do more than fight a delaying action against the best that the Innisphere could put in the field. During the Canopians' years as a territorial state, its military was reduced to a symbolic cadre of veteran soldiers confined to service as palace guard. Military build-up was renewed after the Magistracy's declaration of independence, but the loss of many key industrial worlds stunted the military's potential for growth. The Magistracy's steady economic growth since the end of the Fourth Succession War has allowed them and their armed forces, the MAF, to emerge as the second largest standing army in the periphery, doubling its size to nearly 13 regiments. Though the size of the MAF is impressive by even Innisphere standards, the average MAF mech warrior remains poorly trained and unskilled, a lack that even a high degree of motivation and willingness to endure considerable sacrifice cannot overcome. Recently, MAF leaders instituted an extensive training program to remedy this problem, and last year the Canopian government opened the Canopian Institute of War. This university, patterned after the Sunjang Mech Warrior Academy on the Draconis Combine, is designed to provide highly trained and skilled officers for the MAF. The Institute faculty includes many distinguished mech commanders, but the impact of the Institute on the MAF remains to be seen. The Canopian government has also bolstered its military by hiring several veteran mercenary units from the Innisphere. Two of the most recent acquisitions have been the Dragon Slayers and Ethan Allen's Green Mountain Boys. Reportedly, the Dragon Slayers are serving defensive duty on several Canopian border worlds, but their exact location is unknown. The Green Mountain Boys are regularly stationed along the Canopian Marik border as well, but they're currently serving as a temporary garrison on the world of Detroit in the New Colony region. The Magistracy's economic diversification and improved foreign relations have increased the number of battle mechs, tanks and aerospace units available to the MAF, but the majority of the realm's own output of war materiel still comes from Majesty metals and manufacturing on Canopus 4 and Duncanshire. The weapons industry has also benefited from the foreign cultural exchange initiatives established by the magistrates as skilled technicians and manufacturing experts have upgraded magistry operations and increased production.